Well, hello there. My name is Tanya Stevens, and if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that some of the most important work happens when nobody's looking. Here in Sarasota, when a fire strikes, the first thing you see is the obvious stuff: the charred walls, the burnt furniture. It's a gut punch, no doubt about it, but what you see is only the beginning of the story. The real work, the kind of work that truly brings a home back from the brink, involves looking deeper. It's about understanding that the visible damage is just the tip of the iceberg. The truth is, a fire leaves behind a whole host of invisible enemies. Think about it. Smoke and soot don't just hang in the air. They creep into every nook and cranny, embedding themselves in your walls, your ventilation system, even your clothes. Then there's the water, gallons and gallons of it used to put out the flames. It soaks into your floors and drywall, creating a perfect breeding ground for mold. These are the hidden dangers that can turn a bad situation into a catastrophe long after the fire department has left. A professional assessment isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely critical to getting your life back on track. That's why, at VetCor of Sarasota-Manatee, we don't just show up and start tearing things down. We follow a plan, a meticulous, step-by-step process designed to uncover every single issue, big and small. It's a dirty job for sure, but it's a job that has to be done right, because restoring a home isn't just about rebuilding walls, it's about restoring peace of mind. And that starts with a thorough, honest-to-goodness assessment of what you're really up against. So stick around, and I'll walk you through how the pros get it done. Before anyone even thinks about salvaging a photograph or assessing the cost, the first question we have to answer is a simple one. Is it safe to go inside? A fire doesn't just burn things, it fundamentally weakens the very bones of a structure. That ceiling you've walked under 1,000 times might now be sagging, holding on by a thread, saturated with water and ready to collapse. Those walls that have protected your family could be compromised, unstable, and a real hazard to anyone who steps foot inside. You just can't take that chance. So, the first order of business is always a top-to-bottom safety inspection. Our team, trained to see what the average person might miss, starts on the outside, looking for signs of structural distress. We're checking for leaning walls, compromised foundations, and roof lines that just don't look right. We're also on high alert for electrical hazards. Wires that have been exposed to extreme heat can have their insulation melted away, creating a live electrical danger that's just waiting for an unsuspecting victim. It's a methodical, careful process, because a mistake here could be the last one someone makes. We move with caution, testing the integrity of the floors with every step. We're looking up, down, and all around. Are the support beams charred and weakened? Is the subfloor spongy from water damage? Is there any sign of an active electrical current? These aren't just items on a checklist, they represent real, tangible dangers. We have to identify every single one before we can even begin to think about the next phase of the job. It's a slow, deliberate dance with potential disaster, and here's the hard part. If the building is deemed unsafe, nobody goes in. Period. It doesn't matter how badly you want to retrieve a family heirloom or see the damage for yourself. Safety trumps everything. The structure has to be shored up, braced, and secured by professionals before we can allow anyone to enter. This isn't about being overly cautious, it's about respecting the power of what just happened and ensuring that the tragedy of the fire doesn't claim another victim. Only when it's secure can the real work of assessment begin. Once we know the structure is safe to enter, our focus shifts to an enemy that's a lot more insidious than flames. I'm talking about smoke and soot. See, a fire is like a messy, unwanted guest. It doesn't just stay in one room. Smoke is a traveler. It will find its way through the smallest cracks, carried by air currents through your HVAC system and into rooms that the fire never even touched. It coats everything with a fine, greasy, and often toxic layer of residue that can cause more long-term problems than the fire itself. What most people don't realize is that not all soot is created equal. The type of residue left behind depends entirely on what burned. A fire that consumed natural materials like wood and paper will leave a dry, powdery soot. But a fire that involved plastics, rubbers, or other synthetic materials creates a thick, oily, almost sticky residue that's a real bear to clean. Each type requires a completely different approach, a different set of tools, and a different chemical solution to remove it effectively. You can't just grab a sponge and some soap. Our job is to play detective. We trace the path of the smoke from the source of the fire, through the ductwork, and into every corner of the property. We're looking at the walls and ceilings, of course, but we're also inspecting inside cabinets, behind appliances, and deep within the ventilation system. That HVAC system is a super highway for soot, and if you don't clean it properly, you'll just be blowing contaminated air back into your home the first time you turn on the heat, or AC. It's a thorough, painstaking process. This assessment determines our entire cleaning strategy. We document which areas have light smoke damage and which are heavily contaminated. We identify the type of soot in each location, because using the wrong cleaning agent on an oily residue can actually smear it deeper into the surface, making the problem 10 times worse. It's a science, really. A dirty, smelly science, but a science nonetheless. Getting this part right is the difference between a home that's truly clean and one that just looks clean on the surface. Alright, so we've made sure the place won't fall on our heads and we've tracked the path of the smoke. Now it's time to dig even deeper, to look past the blackened surfaces and assess the real structural damage. This is where a trained eye is worth its weight in gold. A homeowner might see a charred 2x4 and think, well, that needs to be replaced. But a professional sees more. We see how the heat has affected the integrity of the wood, how deep the char goes, and whether the surrounding framework has been compromised. We're essentially performing an autopsy on the building skeleton. This means carefully examining the load-bearing walls, the floor joists, the roof rafters, everything that holds the house together. Fire doesn't just burn wood. It cooks it, changing its chemical composition and robbing it of its strength. A beam might look fine from a distance, but up close, we might find it's become brittle and weak, unable to support the weight it was designed to carry. It's a quiet and hidden danger that can lead to catastrophic failure down the road. This part of the job often requires us to get our hands dirty in a different way. We might need to remove sections of drywall to get a clear look at the studs and framing behind it. We'll crawl into the attic spaces, navigating the charred and weakened trusses to inspect the roof decking and support system. We'll get down into the crawl space to check the floor joists and the foundation. It's about leaving no stone unturned, because a single overlooked piece of compromised framing can jeopardize the entire restoration effort. Based on this in-depth examination, we can make the tough calls. We determine what can be salvaged, what can be repaired, and what absolutely must be torn out and replaced. This isn't guesswork, it's a calculated assessment based on industry standards and years of experience. Creating this detailed map of the structural damage is crucial. It informs the scope of the repair work and ensures that when we rebuild, we're building on a foundation, both literally and figuratively, that is strong, stable, and safe for the family that will one day call this place home again. It's one of the great ironies of this job. The very thing that saves your house from burning to the ground, water, can also be the source of its next big problem. Firefighters have to use an immense amount of water to extinguish a blaze, and that water has to go somewhere. It soaks into everything: drywall, insulation, carpeting, subfloors, and wooden frames. And where there's lingering moisture, there's the inevitable threat of mold. Mold is a silent, creeping problem that can be just as destructive as the fire itself. So, a huge part of our assessment is dedicated to hunting down hidden moisture. Our eyes can tell us where the water damage is obvious, but the real danger lies where we can't see it. That's why we don't just look. We use technology. We come armed with specialized tools like moisture meters and thermal imaging cameras. These gadgets allow us to see behind walls and under floors, revealing pockets of dampness that would otherwise go completely undetected. It's like having X-ray vision for water. We methodically scan every surface in the affected areas and beyond. A wall might look and feel perfectly dry to the touch, but the thermal camera might show a cold spot, indicating moisture trapped inside the wall cavity. We'll then use a moisture meter, which has two sharp probes to pierce the surface and get a definitive reading of the moisture content within the material. This tells us exactly how saturated the area is, and helps us map out the full extent of the water damage, not just the parts that are visibly stained. This process is absolutely non-negotiable. If you try to rebuild over a damp structure, you are essentially sealing in a time bomb. Mold can begin to grow in as little as 24 to 48 hours in the right conditions. It will eat away at organic materials like wood and drywall, compromise the structural integrity, and release spores into the air that can cause serious health problems. By meticulously detecting and mapping out every wet area, we ensure that everything is thoroughly dried out, before a single new piece of drywall goes up. We're not just fixing fire damage, we're preventing a whole new disaster from taking root. Now, you might think that after all the inspecting, probing, and testing, the hard part is over. But there's one more step that is just as critical as any of the others, and it doesn't involve a hammer or a moisture meter. It involves a camera and a clipboard. I'm talking about documentation. A thorough, detailed, and undeniable record of every single bit of damage is the single most important tool you have when it comes to dealing with your insurance company. Without it, you're just flying blind. This isn't just about snapping a few photos of the most dramatic-looking damage. This is a forensic-level documentation process. We take hundreds, sometimes thousands of high-resolution photos. We capture wide shots of every room to establish context, and then we move in for detailed close-ups of the damage. We photograph the char on the beams, the soot on the walls, the water stains on the ceiling, the readings on our moisture meters. We videotape walkthroughs, narrating our findings as we go to create a comprehensive record. Every observation is logged. We create detailed room-by-room reports that list every item that's damaged, from the structure itself down to the personal contents. We note the type of soot, the extent of the water saturation, and the specific structural components that are compromised. This isn't just a list, it's a story. It's a detailed narrative, backed by irrefutable evidence that tells the insurance adjuster exactly what happened and what it will take to make it right. It removes ambiguity and replaces it with cold, hard facts. This meticulous paper trail is what bridges the gap between disaster and recovery. It provides the insurance company with everything they need to process the claim efficiently and accurately. It helps ensure that the scope of work is approved and that you, the property owner, receive the proper coverage you're entitled to. It minimizes the back and forth, the disputes and the delays that can be so frustrating during an already stressful time. It's a dirty job, sure, but creating this ironclad documentation is a clean, professional way to start the restoration process on the right foot. So, there you have it. Assessing fire damage is so much more than a quick look around. It's a systematic, multi-layered investigation that requires a deep understanding of how fire, smoke, and water conspire to destroy a home. From ensuring the building is safe to enter, to hunting down invisible moisture and creating a mountain of paperwork, every step is crucial. Skipping even one part of this process is like trying to build a new house on a shaky foundation. A thorough professional assessment is the only way to guarantee that the restoration is not just complete, but also safe and permanent. It's the only way to truly close the book on the disaster. Here at VetCor of Sarasota-Manatee, this is what we do. We're not just a construction crew, we're your first line of defense after a disaster. We bring our expertise, our technology, and our commitment to every single job. We understand that we're not just assessing damaged property. We're helping people navigate one of the most difficult experiences of their lives. We're here to support you through every single step, from that first initial inspection to the moment you can finally turn the key and feel at home again. We handle the dirty work so you can focus on rebuilding your life. If you've experienced a fire, don't try to go it alone. The road to recovery starts with a single, important step: a professional damage assessment. Give us a call here at VetCor of Sarasota-Manatee. Let us come out, take a look, and give you a clear, honest, and comprehensive picture of what needs to be done. Let us help you take that first step with the confidence of knowing you have a team of dedicated pros in your corner, ready to help you come back stronger. Thanks for watching.